So in our previous video we went through all of the tools on the back board of the L2E. So now we're going to run down into the tabs, the Tabtrax and the functionality down here. So we'll start off with the Tabtrax. So first of all we have the new larger 300mm Tabtrax. Now this was designed so that you could pick multiple tabs up in one hit. So have a look here, if we're pulling a sill panel or a rocker panel, we can actually pull multiple tabs. You can actually get these so it will pull 3 tabs. Okay, you just catch them because they're solid tabs, they will actually pull quite nicely, but a really effective way would be the 2. So that's the first one. Now the U-bolt can be removed, just be slid off, slid back on. If you wanted to pull 2 U-bolts, you can take the one off of here. Now you only got to release these 2 nuts, it will slide off, and then we can slide that on to, so if you're using a pulling post, now we can put 2 straps up and pull evenly. Obviously you just need to tighten these down so that they grip up nice. And this one's slightly different in the sense it has this little grub screw here. So you can undo this screw, okay, you grab your tab, the tab will slide along here. Now what we don't want to be doing, we don't want to be pulling on the threads of this screw, so what we need to do is slide the tab along until we're happy, then lift the Tabtrax up and then just screw into the side now. So as you can see now, down the length of the tab, the grub screw will actually touch this part here rather than being down under here, because obviously if you're under here, when you lift you could snap the set screw. So next, moving down, we have our standard Tabtrax. We've got 3 sizes here. We have the 100, the 65 and the 25. Okay, so again, if you're working with a tab, I would say it's a bit more prominent if you're working with a flexible tab. All right. If you've got a real deep dent and you want to lift the center, you can use this tab here. The only thing you've got to be careful of, obviously if you pull too much with this, it can go the other way. So the height on these Tabtrax are designed in a way there's quite a bit of height, quite a bit of clearance between the bottom of the Tabtrax and the top of the tab. So if you have a tab sat like this, you can actually still put this Tabtrax adapter on there. See, there's quite a bit of a curve on there, but as you pull, it's going to start grabbing the next neck out, so it's going to start pulling more evenly. So when you get to this stage, rather than reversing around into a high spot, it's going to start to draw more of the tab square, so it almost turns it from a flexible tab into a solid tab in all one hit. So just something to play around with, you know, for the times that you may need that. You just may find it's a little bit faster, okay, rather than keep swapping your tabs out. So from there we go down to our 2 curved Tabtrax adapters. Okay, so we have a 65mm and a 128. So the 128, this one here, 65 is a smaller one. Now a curved tab will fit in the straight Tabtrax. Okay, it will fit in there quite nicely. Where the curved tabs become really into play is with our Centipede connects. Okay, so these tabs here, especially when you start going down into the smaller ones, you can get some pretty tight radiuses on these. Now obviously a tight radius now, this Tabtrax isn't going to catch, whereas the curved one just gives us a little bit more option to grab more ears at the same time. So there's a lot more of a curve that we can use on these. These adapters here, this is a door edge adapter. So this is for going down, for argument's sake, between a front wing and a door. Obviously if the door is overextended, it's pulled the front wing in. What we can actually do is we can slide this, if the door's there, front wing's here, we can slide this down the panel gap to the point where we're happy with, to the point where it's bent in, hook that up to the K-bar. So hooking it up to the K-bar adjustment. I would use the K-bar rather than a slide hammer because of the thickness of the metal on this. In order to go down between the panel gap between the door and the wing, it needs to be of a certain thickness, and unfortunately the slide hammer may just overcome that thickness. But as soon as you get down there, what you can then do is start putting some force on there, pulling this tool out, and then straightening that door edge. Okay, so really nice little tool there. Another 25mm adapter here with a pin in it. This is if we're using any of our standard tabs rather than it being a pass-through adapter like the other 25mm, where it just slides straight through. This will lock up and stop us pulling through. Then we have this adapter here. This is something that has often caused some head scratching. So it's a very, very good tool, this one. So if you grab hold of one of the tabs with the set screw in them, undo the screw, we can now actually screw this piece of apparatus into the tab. Okay, getting that down nice and square there. Okay, now we can place the whole lot on a K-beam, a K-bar, whatever it is we're using. Now there is no way at all for that tab to release from the spine of the tool. It cannot slip. So if you're using, especially with the K-bar where you have that pendulum motion, you're not going to slip out the back of the tab. That's all one unit now, so really strong. Right, so moving on now down to our legacy SuperTabs. So you've probably seen these time and time again, so very standard. Multiple sizes, again they can be used, the set screws will be taken out to be used with our adapter over here should we wish. The reason we've separated, in the earlier systems we had the dead center aluminium tabs sat next to the dead center SuperTabs over the back here. The only thing is I was getting some confusion because if you look at the two tab sizes, you know, they're or thereabouts in size wise. There's a little touch difference between the two there, and people are getting confused as to which one would be used. So to stop that confusion, we've moved these dead center aluminium tabs up the continuum to where they belong. So remember what we said, the foam follows the continuum path. So we have our rough out tools down here, moving across to our intermediates, moving across to our finishing tabs. These two tabs, the effective pulling area on this tab, if I remove this, as you can see on these, this one has 21mm written on there, and that's quite clearly not a 21mm face here. So the 21mm actually dictates the hub size. So if I grab a 21mm dead center tab, that's there. You can see the hub and the face of this tab are directly aligned. Okay, so this is the effective pulling surface of this tab, whereas when we're into this tab, the neck is a lot slimmer. So if I was to do an extended pull with this, as I was to pull a high spot, I would get a standard peaked high spot in the middle. Just come around, I would get a standard peaked high spot in the middle like this. Okay, whereas if I did an over pull with one of these tabs, I would get very much a high spot that mimics this center core here. So we'll go into a little bit more detail on the dead center aluminium tabs as we start to rise up the continuum. But these dead center tabs, various sizes, just for getting in there for moving a lot of metal. I personally prefer the larger tabs if I'm going to want to put tension on something, so I can hook these up to a strap. So in order to hook to a strap, again, we can take a set screw out. In here we have two sizes of hook there. So we have one thin and one thicker thread. So the thicker thread will go into most of your SuperTabs. Okay, now we can hook a strap onto that and we can do a tension pull. Right, so a nice good wide area. Because of the surface area on there, you know, you don't have to be as precise with your pulling temperatures. So if you are pulling for a long time and it does drop outside of that temperature range, it's not going to be as critical as some of the smaller tabs. Just be careful though, obviously if you have this under load and it does get too cold, it could ping off. So try and keep it as inside the correct temperatures as you possibly can. So moving down into our Centipede tabs. So slight redesign on the Centipedes, so both the flexibles and the solids. So what we've done now on the older tabs, the last wing here, the last ear used to come right on the end of the tab. We've come in a step. What that does, if we start pulling close to the edge up here, previously the tab would peel off. Now we're getting a little bit more of effective pull on there. So just coming in that touch. Other than that, the tab remain the same. The tab material, this blue flex material, is incredibly good. It's very, very forgiving. A lot of people said, well, there used to be a lot of the polycarbonate tabs, the ice tabs in the system before. The process has got so good that we're getting all that we kind of need out of these tabs. So until we start losing the surface area, that's where the polycarbonate really starts to shine. But the surface area on these tabs is so great that we felt there was no real need. If the process is followed, these tabs would act a lot better. There's a lot more twist in them. So if you've got something, with the polycarbonate tab, they're very, very stiff. If there's any kind of twist on the panel at all, the tab would generally try and lift up. Where if there's a twist on this tab, the tab will follow it quite nicely. So the other thing you'll notice as well on the solid tabs, we have this hole here. So if you want to do some lateral tension, you'll notice there's a carabiner within the system. So you can undo the carabiner, all the way down, slot that through the hole on the tab, okay. Do it back up, and what we now have is we have a tab that we can stick laterally to a panel, place a strap through here up to a pulling post, and then we can do sideward pulling. We have multiples of the same size to this 25mm tab. This is one of the most common used for sill panels and rockers. So anything that's widely used, you'll find multiples within the system now. Moving down, spoken about these. The smaller thread eye bolt is for these 4 tabs here. These have a slightly different thread because obviously the size of them. So that's what this smaller thread tool's for. Okay. We go into our knocking down tips. So we have 3. These can be knocking down or pushing tips depending on what you're using. So we have a sharp one here. We have a medium blunt. And then we have a chiseled one. This is more going to be for restoring body lines, stuff like that. And they are interchangeable with the Black Swan. So the Black Swan here, or a modular knockdown as well. They can just screw into the end. Some of these tools will come with set screws in. This is so they can be used on other tools as well. You can just unscrew that set screw, and then that will enable your tip to be screwed onto your modular knockdown. Okay, so moving on, we have Centipede Connects. So really, really good tool these are. They have this articulation. You're also able to separate the tab into small pieces. You can connect different tabs of different sizes in, and so these will follow contours. This one here go into quite tight contours. Now when you're picking your tab track, you want to try and grab as many of these wings, ears as possible, to get a more even pull, to get a stronger pull. But it just gives you that ability to be able to follow contours. Now where these also become really handy, if we've got a dog leg repair on a vehicle, we can heat this tab using a pair of pliers, and we can just bend these wings over 90 degrees. Okay, once they're bent at 90 degrees, when we place that tab onto our dog leg, these that are now bent 90 degrees will actually sit inside the door shut. So as you start to pull, you're getting a lot more strength. You're getting a lateral pull from these, and you'll get a directional pull from the tab face. So really, really good tab. Just a little advancement on our older ice tabs. So yeah, really, really good. They've been very, very popular. It's just nice to have a little bit of extra flexibility to where you want. Moving on, again, we've got our curved tabs here. Again, because they're multiples, that's for your wheel arch. Generally, your wheel arch damage is going to be fairly big, so that's why you have two in there, and then you have the smaller version as well. So again, nice and flexible. Good tab. You can be either used on your solid Tabtrax adapter or the curved one as well. They will both fit over there. Then we have some smaller cut down versions. This again is just to save you cutting down one of the larger tabs that you've got in your system. And we have two smaller curved ones as well. Now onto our dead center centipedes here. So we have one ice and one of the blue flexible material. This is what most of the dead center reviews you would have been, these tabs that have been used on the Crease kill would have been this 7mm tab here, and then we go slightly wider. Again, there's two thicknesses, sorry, the same thickness, but you get two of, and then you have a slightly wider one again. So what is the difference between these tabs and our solid tab over here? If you pick these up, or a flexible one, you pick them and think, well, hang on a minute, my surface area is somewhat the same. My tab face is a little bit thicker on here, but the most important thing is the neck size. You can see the neck size here. This is our dead center neck, and this is a standard Centipede neck. The standard Centipede neck, you're distributing more force across the face of the tab. So what's going to happen is, if you have a very sharp V to your crease, this is going to sit and it's going to pull either side of that V, and it's going to pull up like an M shape, which is not what we want unless you're very good at knocking down, where this will enable our pulling force to be concentrated right on the primary of the damage, so literally turning that damage inside out. So very, very effective way. The necks are so important for getting to that primary damage, so just pay a lot of attention to when you select in your tab that you are selecting the correct ones. Okay, now we move on to our dead center aluminium tabs. We have spoken about these a little while ago, but I'll just run through them again. So 36mm, it has written here, dictates the pulling performance across the center of the tab here, so it doesn't take into account this outer rim around the edge. This is purely there to aid adhesion, so there's a lot of flexibility there. Okay, so this is going to pull. If we over pull with these, and this is what you've got to be very, very careful of. If you over pull, if you use these on steel, because they can be used on steel, a lot of guys like them on body lines because they will turn the body line inside out quite nicely. But if you over pull, you are going to get a very flat, square high spot. Cylindrical high spot, should I say. So just be a little bit careful. If you ever overpull, what I would always suggest before you start using these, just have a play around on the scrap panel. Give one an overpull and look at the high spot you actually get, because it's perfectly flat. You can almost see the imprint of the tab on a steel panel. But very, very strong tab. So anything from here across is a lifetime warranty tab. The consumable tabs from these tabs across now, the ones I'm going to go into now, they are a consumable. So why they're a consumable? Well, we just have to, in order to get them to work properly, like I said here, in order to get this dead center tab to work, we have to slim the neck size down. So by slimming the neck size down, unfortunately, we do take a little touch of strength out of them. But that is if you're using them in a fairly abusive way. If you use them coupled with the correct tooling, so the lighter slide hammer, or if you're using the mini lifter, it's absolutely no problem at all. but just make sure we're pulling perfectly square on the head. So you can actually purchase a dead center adapter for these tabs, which allows the tab to sit in much snug, more snug than what this one is here. But just making sure that the tab's not sitting wonky like this, because that will have an adverse effect on the performance of the tab, both in longevity and the performance of your pull. So these are our intermediate tabs. These are quite a beefy neck. So these have just been introduced into the L2E system now. So very good, so good beefy neck. We have thin and thicker crease tabs. Okay, so both of those there. And then we also have, see, a range of standard Dent tabs here. Now all of the sizes are actually stamped into the heads of the tabs. You can see that now. So they are actually stamped in here. So if you're ever unsure about what one you want, you can have a look at the heads and there will be your information. Okay, now moving on, last but not least, into the dead center tabs. And there's quite a big variety of those. So on the round tabs you have 2 of each size, because if they do break, they are a popular tab. If they do break, at least you've got another one there you can use straight away. These can be replaced, so they're not particularly expensive. They can be replaced, and you can have some extras for whatever it is you want to do. Moving on to this style, onto the crease tabs, we do have, and be quite careful, because there is a curved and a straight version of every one. Or the larger sizes, should I say, sorry. So all the larger sizes here, there's a curved and a straight. So just make sure when you're picking your tabs up, you may think you picked a straight tab up, but it could well be a curved one. So just make sure that you get a good look at these. So what's the difference between the 2 materials? So one's a polycarbonate, one's a flexible. So the nylon is going to retain heat a little bit better, so it's going to be nicer to use on aluminium, whereas the polycarbonate will dissipate heat quicker. This has, when you're pulling perfectly square from the panel, this will give around a 25% extra pull strength. So as we've started to lose some of the surface area of the tabs, that's when it's become more critical to have a stronger tab. All right, so you'll find certain technicians will favour the flex, certain technicians will favour the ice. What I would say to you is use them both, and make the decision for yourself, because we all pull slightly differently, and they're all going to react slightly differently to how we pull. So hopefully that just gives you a little bit more of an insight into the tabs, the tooling, and hopefully try and get the best out of the L2E system for you.